श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः. Today we start with the Dvaya Prakaranam. As we all know, the three Rahasyas, namely the Tirumantram, is known as the mantra Raja or the Moola mantra. The Dvaya Prakaranam, Dvaya Mantram, is known as the mantra Ratna. And then the Charama Shloka, Shloka. Charama Shloka mantra, it can be treated as a mantra also. It is in the form of an Sanskrit verse in the Anushtup Chandas. So these three are known as the Rahasya Trayas in the Shri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And these three are formally imparted to the disciple at the time of having Samashayanam by the Acharya who conducts the Samashayanam. So the Acharyas belonging to both the Sampradayas have explained in detail the meanings, the inner meanings, the esoteric meanings of these three mantras in a very versatile and vivid manner. And so far we have studied in detail the meanings of the Tirumantra Prakaranam or the Moola Mantra Prakaranam as espoused by Swami Pillaloka in his work called Mumuksupadi, which has been commented upon by Swami Manavana Mamuni in a wonderful manner. So Swami Manavana Mamuni was known as the Vyakhyana Chakravarti or the emperor among the commentators. And this is well justified because his commentary is so wonderful. It not only captures the essence of the original text which is being commented upon, but it also throws new light on the topic that is being explained. So many great scholars have shown in several discourses earlier, but many of them are in Tamil language, how Swami Manavana Mamuni, who has been decorated with the honorific, namely Vyakhyana Chakravarti or the emperor among the commentators, is well justified. Here in the beginning, he actually gives a wonderful introduction to the Dvaya Prakarana. I will just read it out. So this is the introduction given by Swami Manavana Mamuni to the Dvaya Prakarana. Dvaya Prakaranam Avatarikai Prathama Rahasyamana Tirumantratnudiya Varthattai Arudichaidavanantaram Idil Madhyamapadattarum Tritiya Padattarum Pratipadikkappatta Upayopeyangale Vishanamaha Pratipadiyanulla Dvayatinudiya Arthattai Arudichaihirar. So Prathama Rahasya is Tirumantra because the first three or two sutras in the first chapter, namely the Tirumantra Prakarana, is as follows. Mumuksupadi Rahasyam Moondru Adil Prathama Rahasyam Tirumantram. A mumukshu or a person who is desirous of attaining liberation has to understand three rahasyas. Mumukshuvukku ariya vendum rahasyam moondru. Adil Prathama Rahasyam Tirumantram. The first among them is the Tirumantra. So Prathama Rahasyamana Tirumantrathnuடைய அர்த்தத்தை அருளிச் செய்த அனந்தரம். Having explained the meaning of the first rahasya, first esoteric secret mantra, namely the Tirumantra or the Ashtakshara Mahamantra. Adil Madhyama Padattalum, Tritiya Padattalum, as you know, it contains of three words, Om, Namaha and Narayanaya. So, among those three words, the middle word, namely Namaha, and the third word, Narayanaya. These two words respectively mention about the Upaya and Upeya. So Namaha actually denotes the Upaya or the means to attain the Supreme Lord. And the word Narayanaya basically focuses on the object or entity to be attained, namely Narayana, which is known as Upeya. Upatum Yogyam Upeyam, that which is fit to be attained. So it is the Supreme Lord who is fit to be attained. So he is known as the Upaya. And this is denoted by the word Narayanaya, which is the Upeya. The means to attain him is mentioned by the word Namaha. So we have Om Namaha Narayana. So the two words which concisely explain several meanings is once again explained in detail by the Dvaya Mantra. Therefore, says Pratipadiyanulla Dvayattinudeya Arthathai arulit seihirar. Then Swami Manavala Mamani enters into a detailed discussion with regard to whether the Dvaya Mantra should be explained first or whether the Charamashloka Mantra should be explained first. Because the Charamashloka Mantra practically explains how the process of Sharanagati should be performed. So, many a times what we do, we show what is to be practically done and then explain the theory behind it. That is one way of doing it. Or we may even explain the theory and then practically show how it is to be done. So Swami Manavala Mamani enters into a detailed discussion of whether the Dvaya Mantra should be exposed first, whether there should be an exposition of Dvaya Mantra first and then the Tirumantra, then the Charamashloka. The Charamashloka has to be explained first and then the Dvaya Mantra. I will not go into the minute details, but he says both are acceptable. There is nothing wrong in doing that. But in the present context, he says, Vidlalokacharya has, in this context, opted to explain the Dvaya Mantra first and then explain the Charamashloka. So that is the brief introduction given to the Dvaya Prakarana. Adil Varu Prakarattai Moondra Prabandhathilam Arulit Cheidavarahe Mattai Prakarattai அருளிச் செய்ய வேண்டும் என்ற திருவுள்ளம் பத்தி திருமந்திரார்த்தம் திருமந்திரார்த்தம் அருளிச் செய்த அனந்தரம் துவயார்த்தத்தை அருளிச் செய்கிறார். So that is the connection. We call it as the Sangati in the Shastric language. What is the connection between the first chapter and the second chapter? Are they totally disconnected from each other or are they totally connected with each other? They are never totally unconnected, they are totally connected actually. So as was mentioned earlier, what is the connection between the first and second chapters? What was mentioned in the second, by the second and third word of the mantra that was first exposed, the Tirumantra Prakarana, is being explained in the Dvaya Prakarana. As I have been mentioning all along, it is the nature of our Purvacharyas, our predecessor preceptors, that something that has been explained in a nutshell is explained in greater detail. And it may be explained in further greater detail. And then it may be once again mentioned in a concise manner. So when we take a very model essay. Initially, there is an introduction. After the introduction, the main points mentioned in the introduction are elaborated upon in a very detailed manner. And after that is done, once again, it is mentioned in the concise manner in the conclusion. So, krishanartham statah kechit akrisham statra kurvate. Then akrishanapithanarthane krisham statraiva kurvate. So, we start in a nutshell, elaborate it in a very wonderful, versatile manner. Once again, we end up mentioning everything in a nutshell. So, this is how the Vyakhyana Parampara, or the commentary tradition, or the tradition of explaining any concept associated with the Shastras, whether it is Vishishtadvaita Vedanta Shastra or the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. This is the tradition which is time honored and followed by most of the commentators or most of the persons who have authored these wonderful treatises. So we come to the Vyakhyanam. The first sutra is as follows. Puram Bundana Pattukkalai Vasanayode Vidhayum Emberumane Tanjamin Pattuhayum Peritapparin Tumindirikayum Petukutvarikayum Irikum Nal Uhandarangalile Pravananai Gunanuha Kaikariyangalile Podupokahayum Padirikum Sri Vaishnava Halyetamarindu Arindirikayum Tirumantratirum Dvaitirum Niyatamahayum Acharya Prevam Ganatirikayum Acharyan Pakkaridam Memberuman Pakkaridam Kritagyanai Poruhayum Jnanamum Viraktiyum Shantiyum Udayanayirikum Paramasatyakanode Sahavasam Pannuhayum Vaishnavadhikarikya Avashyapekshitam. So he lays down all the characteristics or the qualities Sri Vaishnava has to imbibe at any cost. So he gives a list of about 8 to 10 different qualities that have to be imbibed at any cost over a period of time. It cannot be done overnight by a Sri Vaishnava. This is very, very, very important. So we study these qualities one by one along with the commentary of Manavala Mavli, which is once again wonderful. So he comments upon it as follows. Adil Prathamatile Vaishnavana Irpan Uruvanakku Swadhikararthamaha Avashyapekshitama Ullavatrai Anugrahamaha Rudichai Hira. So no other Acharya probably has enumerated all the qualities that need to be imbibed by a Sri Vaishnava in this manner, in this beautiful, wonderful manner, in a comprehensive manner. So he says, Adil Prathamatile, in the beginning itself, Vaishnavana Iruppaduruvanak Swadhikararthamaha. So if a person has to become an adhikari, if a person has to become a really eligible to have the instruction of the Tirumantra and the Dvayamantra, he has to, without fail, invariably imbibe these qualities. He says, Swadhikararthamaha Avashyapekshitama Ullavatrai. Avashyapekshita means invariably it is required. So it's a mandatory aspect that has to be imbibed by every Vaishnava who is worth his salt, who wants to be called as a Vaishnava, not from another person, but to inherently possess that Vaishnavism or call himself a Vaishnavite. He should, without fail, have all these qualities that are going to be explained hereafter. There are 8 to 10 in number, which is going to be explained in great detail. So what is the first one? Puram Bundana Pattukkalai Adayavasanayode Vidhayum Endre Todangi Oru Churnayane. So with this, we may call it Sutra. Some Sri Vaishnava scholars, great scholars like Velakudi Vardacharya Swami, used to call it as Churnika. Churnika means Generally, what happens when you say sutra, there is a definition in Sanskrit language that sutra should be very, very pithy in nature. It should be as concise as possible. But sometimes, though we have not, Piladokacharya has not given the concept of being concise, in some places he elaborates to a great extent. So these great scholars used to say it is better to call these as churnika. Churnika are, they are not exactly sutras, but then the form of prose, which are very pithy in nature, but which convey a lot of information depending upon the context. So it is in the fitness of things, because even Swami Manavala Mamuni refers this as churna or churnika. Both are having the same meaning. So what is that? Puram mundana pattakkalayanaye vasanayode vidahayum. So giving up along with the vasanas. There is no literal and direct translation of the word vasana. So what is meant by vasana? I have given a detailed exposition about what avidya, karma, vasana and ruchi. What do these four mean? So vasana is, to put it in a very simple manner, a type of inclination towards having something. Suppose, for example, somebody says sugar. Immediately, as soon as I listen to the word sugar, there is a sort of feeling in the tongue, which means that I want to taste that sugar immediately. Or suppose I like a wonderful dish called Shakkara Pongal, which is prepared in the Sri Vaishnava temples, especially in the way it is prepared in Melukote temple or the Tirunarayanpuram temple, which is a very unique way, which is its most tasty, delectable taste, which is unique and which is prepared in this place only and not in any other place. This method. As soon as you listen to the word, I will say, how nice it will be if I taste that Shakkara. This is with regard to sattvic food. But if some people are given to eat unsattvic food or food that is prohibited in the Shastras, those foods are more enjoyable to the materialistic mind. So immediately they will jump at the idea and then say, how nice it would be if I have that type of thing. So that is known as vasana. So it may be with regard to money, it may be with regard to food, the objects of the sense organs, namely Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. I am sure you are familiar with the translation of these words. That is sense of smell, sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of sound. Rock music will appeal to people more than classical music, whether it is Western or Indian. Just see how many people flock to listen to rock music, and how many people are ready to listen to classical music. Even in classical music, if it's of a very pure nature, only a handful of people will be ready. So you can see the difference. Always things that are bad for the Atma, that are detrimental for the Atma to attain progress in the spiritual path, appeal to the Atma, because that is the nature of Maya or Prakriti, which binds us to this world. So therefore, giving all these pleasures or giving the inclination towards these pleasures, giving up the pleasures along with the inclinations. Puram mundana pattakkalai adaya vasanayode vidahi. Even the remote or the minutest inclination has to be given up for all these things. Whether it is money, whether it is sensual pleasures, whether it is pleasures or what they call as khyati, labha and puja, fame. So everybody wants to become famous in this world. Who does not want the fame? Of course, it comes with so many strings attached. People don't realize that. Then Khyati Labha, so earnings in terms of money. Puja, respect from people. This is one very, very difficult aspect to overcome. Everybody wants to be respected by people. So they call it as Khyati Labha Puja. So Labha includes other sensual pleasures also. Not only Labha means begetting something. So it might be money, it might be sensual pleasures, including wine, women, etc. So that's why he says, Vasanayode Vidhaya. What does this mean? Pitaram Mataram Dana Nityadi Padiye Bahya Vishaya Sangangaludaya Maruvalidada Parihavasanayaha Vidhai. He put so many classes, which is very, very important. So he gives a shloka, which is as follows. Pitaram Mataram Daran Putran Bandhun Sakhin Gurun Ratmani Dhanadhanyani Kshetrani Cha Grihani Cha Sarvadharmamscha Santyajya Sarvakamamscha Saksharani Lokavikranta Charanau Sharanam Te Vrajam Vibho. That is what Ramanujacharya asks for in his Sharanagati Gadya, which two wonderful, wonderful shlokas. Pitaram, Mataram. So, Sarvata, I will give up my father, I will give up my mother. That doesn't mean that he should not respect them and not take care of them. He should not have what is known as bandha. He should not have undue attachment towards them. That is what is meant here. That doesn't mean that a person should, when he says that I have given up sarvadharmamscha santyajya, I have given up my father, I have given up my mother, that doesn't mean that he should disrespect them or he should not take care of them, because taking care of the parents is one of the first dharmas everybody will advocate, whether it is Ramanujacharya or Pillilokacharya or anybody. What is mentioned here is he should not have undue attachment towards these people, because he should have attachment towards the Lord alone and nobody else. So he says Pitaram, Mataram, father, mother, Daran, wife, Putrane, children, Bandhune, relatives, Sakhin, friends, Guru, Acharyas. So in one should not feel that it's a contradictory statement. Because you say, Buddhadokacharya himself is going to say, Acharya, Abhimaname, Uttarakam. Have utmost respect for the Acharya and do all types of services to him. But here when he says, Gurun Santyajya, give up the Gurus, it is not contradictory at all, though it may seem to be apparently contradictory. So you should not have an attachment of an undue method. So it should be all in the form of Kainkariya to the Lord. So don't have undue attachment towards these things. So Pitaram, father, mother, husband, wife, children, friends, relatives, gurus or even the preceptors, and then Ratnani, Dhanadhanyani, Kshetrani cha Grihani cha. We have so much of attachment for the precious stones like emeralds, pearls, sapphires, etc. Many people, they are so much enamored about their different the different ornaments they adorn themselves with. That doesn't mean that they should not do that. They should not have attachment towards that. So many people wear finger rings on all their fingers, on all the 10 fingers. Then they wear earrings. They wear different types of garlands, which are embedded with stones like sapphire, emerald, pearl, etc. So wearing them in itself is not a crime, or it's not something that is to be done. They are necklaces. But don't have attachment towards it. Ratnani, Dhana, Dhanyani. Money, overcoming the desire for earning money is one of the most difficult things. How much ever he has overcome his wishes, overcoming the desire for money is very, very difficult. So Ratnani, Dhana, Dhanyani. Dhanya is the earlier when people used to own lands, they used to get rice, etc. from the lands. So that is known as dhana, and dhanya, that is corn, etc. that is obtained from the fields. In kshetrani, people are so much attached towards their estates, whether it is in the form of lands, whether it's in the form of villas or private yachts or a private what they call riverfront villa, or island seafront, beachfront villa. So many we see in the TV channels where we say Discovery Life or something like that. Or so many channels are there which I am not very familiar with. But sometimes when we browse, we don't have a TV here, but sometimes when we browse, we come across several villas, etc., which are shown, and people are made to be attracted towards them. Dhanadhanyani kshetrani cha grihani cha. Kshetra is different types of lands, different types of houses, etc. So all these have to be given up. Then sarva dharmamscha santyajya. Dharma is, then some people do something for the sake of punya alone, but that's not a crime. But for a person who wants to be a mumukshu, or whose focus is on attaining moksha alone, this is not very much desirable. That doesn't mean that one should not engage in dharma, that is namely dana, etc. Definitely he has to do that, but he has to do all these things. That is why there is a big debate whether the karmas that are ordained in the Vedas, like Sandhyavandana, etc., should be given up. They should never be given up according to the Sri Vaishnava tradition. On the other hand, they should be performed with an intention of it being a service to the Supreme Lord as Bhagavat Kainkariya, and not as something else, or with some fruit to be attained in mind. So from that point of view, he says, Sarva dharmamscha santyajya, sarva kamamscha saksharani. All the desires have to be given up, along with their inclination to attain them. For example, I may have given up my desire for money, but if somebody will come and say, no, see, if you have money, you can actually perform this kainkariya or this service. From that point of view, why don't you do? Then if I have a small, even an iota of weakness for earning money, what will I say? Okay, I will earn this money because only if I have money, I can do this. So from that point of view, I earn money. No. If a person, if he is a real Vaishnava, he will say, no, I don't want any money at all. So we had several acharyas in our lineage who have never possessed anything from any point of view. So we have several, for example, often it is quoted when Vedanta Deshika was called by the local king, who actually said, I will honor you, I will decorate you with so many wonderful, honorifics, etc. And then it is a famous thing that he authored the Vairagya Panchaka, 5 wonderful shlokas, and then sent it back to the king, where he says, Shoni Shakona Dashatamsha Palana Kala Durvara Garvana Jwala Jala Mahendra Chatu Rachana Dhanyan Namanyamahi Devam Sevitumeva Nishchinumahe Yoso Dayalupura Dana Mushti Muche Kucheramani Dattesma Vitteshanam. Wonderful, wonderful shlokas. And finally he says, Nasti Pitrarjitam Kinchite Namaya Kinchidarjitam Asti me Hasti Shairagre Vastu Paitamaham Dhanam. I have so much of riches, invaluable riches. They cannot be valued at all in terms of any dollars or pounds or euros. I have not earned any money. So there is no self-acquired. In legal terms, they say, is it self-acquired property or is it ancestral property? If it is self-acquired property, you can give it to anybody. If it's ancestral property, it has to belong to your heirs. So he says, I have no self-acquired property. Na maya kinchidarjitam. There is no self-acquired property, nor do I have any ancestral property which is earned by my father. but I have a huge property which my grandfather has earned, and it belongs to me for several generations. And what is that? That is Lord Varadaraja, who is situated on the Hasti Shaila in Kanchipur. And it can never be valued. It cannot be even trillions or quadruplions or quintuplions, whatever amount of dollars you say, it cannot be equal to it. So such is the Vairagya of our Sri Vaishnava Acharyas. So Sarva Kamamscha Saksharan Loka Vikranta Charano Sharanam Te Vrajam Vipo. So I surrender to your divine feet, which offer solace, which offer which are the recipient of the surrenders of all the worlds. So that's what he says, and he says, Pitre Matre Sutta Bhratre Dara Mitra Dayo Piva Ekaika Phalalabhaya Sarvalabhaya Keshavaha. Then the question arises, suppose I lose my father, when now I have lost my father, who will shower that affection of the fatherly affection on me? Who will shower the motherly affection on me? Who will shower the affection of a friend to me if I give up all these people? Then the answer is given in a wonderful manner. It says, Pitre Matre Sutta Bhratre Dara Mitra Dayo Piva Ekaika Phalalabhaya Sarvalabhaya Keshavaha. If a person really gives up all the attachments towards all these people, the Supreme Lord will take over the roles of all these people and shower all these types of affections and much more in respect of the devotee who does so. This is very, very important, but we cannot realize it as of now. So father will shower fatherly affection only. That is the only thing he can do. He cannot shower the motherly affection. He cannot take the role of the mother, because father's mentality or father's inclination will be different. Mother's inclination will be different. Her wife's inclination will be different. Of course, all these people, if they are favorably inclined, because we see many people have estranged fathers, estranged mothers, estranged wives, estranged friends, etc., due to on account of their own thing or because of the behavior of the person whom they are supposed to shower their affection on. But all these people can shower one types of affections on a person, on the person who is being mentioned here. But the Supreme Lord, if he is surrendered to in this manner, so we see him as the father, we see him as the mother, we see him as the wife, we see him as children or the child, we see him as a friend, we see him as something else, some relative. He can shower the affections of all these people put together in an individual manner, in totality, as well as much more, if we really actually surrender unto him. So he says, Ekaika Phalalabhaya. All these people can shower one type of affection, which is the result of their love. But Sarvalabhaya Keshavaha, the Supreme Lord, can play all these roles simultaneously with regard to a real devotee who has surrendered unto him in all respects, having given up his attachment towards all these people. But here I would like to hasten to add that doesn't mean that a person who has done so will actually become a dry person. He will not have any pure affection towards his father, etc. He will have more affection, because ultimately what will happen? In everybody he will see the presence of God, whether it is his wife or whether it is his father or mother or friend or whoever it is. Because my Acharya many a times used to say, Vairagya or renunciation doesn't mean that he is a dry person. That means we many a times see imbalanced renunciation. For example, we have the the Kaushikopakhyaನ or Dharmavyadhopakhyaನ in Mahabharata. So there is a young celibate person called Kaushika, and he wants to acquire some siddhis. So he is the only son, and he has his aged parents who are extremely in a fragile health condition, and there is no one to take care of. He says, I want to go to the forest and perform penance. Then I'll not go into the detail. I'm sure all of you know that. So then he is introduced. So there are 3 episodes happen in due course of his tapas. Then he is introduced to a great butcher called Dharmavyad. And in the Sri Vaishnava text, we say that Rishihal Dharmavyadhan Pakkalile Tuvangi Dharmarahasyangal Arinda Pode, or some such text, where even great sages stood in a queue in the doorstep of Dharmavyada, the virtuous butcher, and understood the nuances of dharma. That is why I said we should not absolve. Suppose some person has an aged father or mother who has to be taken care of. No, that is the first dharma. That will give everything to you. That's what Dharmavyadha says. But then, is it not in contradiction with this verse which says, Pitaram Mataram Dharan Putran Bandhun Sakin Gurun Ratnani Dhanadhanyani Kshet Pranti Granta Sarvadhamshamsha Santyajya? No. Ultimately, what happens, even in his father, even his brother, sister or brother or wife, he will see the Supreme Lord only. So many times people contradict these statements like this with the general dharmas. Then you also have, in this context, Samanya dharmas and Vishesha dharmas, which are the general principles that are to be followed, and also the special principles that are to be followed. So generally, definitely a person has to perform tapas or penance with regard to the Supreme Lord. But that is a Samanya dharma. But that is to be done when his parents do not need his presence. For example, in the case of Dhruva, it happened like that. His parents were hale and healthy. So he could go to the forest and perform penance for a long time. And the Lord also encouraged it by sending Narada to him. Then he himself appeared before Dhruva. So he did not have such a situation. Therefore, it is very, very important to know the difference between Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma, and act accordingly. So the sense of discretion is very, very important with regard to each and every aspect in our life. So this is the ultimate thing, which is Pitaram Mataram Dharan, etc. And finally it says, if a person gives up all the attachment towards these persons and surrenders to the Supreme Lord in a total manner. Total means several hundreds of dimensions are there when I say total manner. Then what happens? Ekaika phalalabhaya idam sarvam sarvalabhaya keshavaha. We do not know except for Nammalvar or somebody, some great Alvar or Acharya like that. They might be in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya or some other Sampradaya also, we don't know that. But our standing example is Nammalvar, who has all types of experiences, divine experiences. And for example, even the story of Periyal, he thinks himself to be Yashoda. And he imbibes the role of Yashoda in such a manner that he thinks he is himself Yashoda and he actually is taking care of Lord Krishna. So we have several instances where individual experiences like these have to be counted upon, and we have these role models in front of us. But whether it is possible for us in this birth to attain such a state, that's a very difficult question, because there are hundreds of levels of surrender itself. So I might have surrendered 0.1%, 0.2%, 0.3%. If the surrender is 100%, then definitely all these things will happen as per what is being said about Purvacharyas, which cannot be false. It is true only, but for us to realize it is the most difficult thing. That also we should underline, because many people, many discourses that are given by several people which I hear too, they say it's as in Kannada, they say chitke odadashtu. It's as simple as doing like this. It's not as simple. It's a very, very, very difficult thing. And many a times it might not be possible for us to do it in one birth also. But from what point of view these people who give such discourses say is just to attract people to the sampradaya, not from the point of view of any other intention, but the intention that they should become astikas, they should have utmost nishtha, what we call as nishtha towards the Supreme Lord. So many a times it is oversimplified, but it's not so simple that much we can say when we study all these things. And when we also try to imbibe these things, only then we will actually understand how difficult it is. Many a time, why it is oversimplified, as I mentioned, it might be one of the main reasons is let people get attracted to these things and at least become astikas, let them have at least some amount of belief in these things, which is just the beginning of what has to happen. So, Pitaram Mataram Dara Nityari Padiye Bahya Vishaya Sangangalayudeya Maruvalida Idara Padi Savasamiya Vidhai. So, he says one more, he adds one more clause here. Maruvalida Padi. We have to give up, along with the vasanas or inclinations, the desire to have all these things, all the pleasures associated with the sense organs and the motor organs. How? Maru Valida Padi. So I have seen several people who have become great acharyas. They give up for a temporary amount of period. I have heard about several people like that. And they initiate people also. They do several things. But after some time, they themselves are overcome by those vasanas once again. And though their disciples become the followers of that particular sampradaya, they have actually given up everything and become much worse than their disciples themselves. So why I am mentioning is that Maru Valida Padi. Many a times we feel that the vasanas have gone and we actually let down our guard, as they say in English. But we should never let down our guard with regard to the desires toward the giving up of the desires towards sensual pleasures. Because even if we think that we have given up and we let down our guard, immediately the vasanas are so strong that they will come back to us and drag us down and ultimately make us very, very ordinary people. We can become more ordinary than the most ordinary person. So that's why he has Swami Manavala Mami, as we know, is the Vyakhya Chakravarti. He says, Maru Valida Padi. So these vasanas have to be given up in such a way that they will not come back to us once again. This is very, very important.
I think the only thing I had to ask was practically the Tirumantram and the Dwaya Mantram both of them seem to be used in ritual worship in Tiruvaradhanam. And
Yes.
for instance, Malavala Mamuni in his Jirpadi Tiruvaradhana Krama, he suggests Dwaya Mantram. And Tirumantram is used in Lagu Tiruvaradhanam. But and also for japa and meditation, dhyanam, whereas the Charama slokas are not used so much for japam and rituals.
Yes.
So if it's between these two mantras, which one should we prefer? Which one should we favor?
So a very good question. I was reading the Nitya Grantha of Ramanujacharya yesterday. So he has actually in his Nitya Grantha In many places he says Mula Mantrena and Dvaya Mantrena. I'll just read one portion. Atha Paramaikantinah Bhagavaradhana Priyogam Vakshye. So in this he says Bhagavat Kainkariaratihi Paramaikanti Bhutva Bhagavaneva. So he tells about this Artika Tyaga. Then he says Tirthangatva Shuchau Deshe Padu Prakshalya Achamya. How one has to bathe, how one has to maintain personal hygiene. All this says, and then he says Shuchau Deshe Mula Mantrena Mridamadaya. So how to clean the vessels? So first he has to go to a tank, etc., tank or pond. Then having cleansed himself, having washed his feet, hands, etc., then he has to clean the portion of the steps. We used to see all these things. Even now we see there are several people in Melkote who follow these things religiously. And Shri M.K. Varadarajan Swami, who is here, his cousins and uncles, even now they perform these things in a very wonderful manner. We have to see it to believe how it is done. So they actually cleanse the portion. Yes, that video has to be shown. So cleanse the portion, the steps of the pond. Then Tiram Samshodhya. Shuchau Deshe Mula Mantrena Bradamadaya. So Mula Mantra is the Ashtakshara Mahamantra. So then it has to be cleaned with mud. So that mud should belong to a very clean place. And even while taking that mud, you have to chant the Mula Mantra. So in one way or the other, they have ensured that in all the rituals, the Mula Mantra is used extensively and Dvaya Mantra is also extensively used. So in some way or the other, they ensure that these two mantras are made to be chanted by Shri Vaishnavas, because that is how ultimately the cleansing of the entire being happens, both the body and the mind and the Atman and the Manas, Atma, Manas, Buddhi and Indriyas and the Deha, of course. So he says, everywhere he says, Anyam Mridamadaya Tritha Kritva Prathak Prathak Samprokshya Abhimantriya Ekena Dikbandanam Astrena Kurya. So everywhere he says, in the second paragraph, he says, Tataha Prani. First, how the place has to be cleaned. Then he says, Pani Prakshalya Udakandinimadaya Tirthasya Mutshipya Bhagavadvava Padangushta Vinisrata Gangajanam Sankalpita Pite Avahya Arkyam Tattva Mula Mantrena Abhimantriya. Then he says, Udakandinimadaya Saptakritvaha Abhimantriya. Take water like this. 7 times chant the Mula Mantra. First it has to be done 5 times. Then Swamurjini Kshipet, like this, he has to sprinkle the water with upon himself. And he says, Evam Trihi Panchakritvaha Saptakritva. Do it 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times. And every time, 7 times, he has to chant the Mula Mantra. So ultimately, what happens? The ritual becomes unimportant. The process of chanting the mantra and immersing himself in the experience of the Lord becomes very important. That is why 2 wonderful stories are narrated in the Sri Vaishnava lore. One story is where it is mentioned that now in the Tiruvaradhanam you have the different patras or the vessels. Arghya Patra, Padya Patra, Achamana Patra, Shuddhodaka Patra, Snaniya Patra, etc. Sometimes 3, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, 7, etc. So it is mentioned in the Agama works that the waters of these should not be mixed before offering to the Lord. You should be very careful, because the water that we have to drink should not be used as the water which is offered to wash the feet. You know, if you have seen Sri Vaishnavas perform it, you know how careful they are. So the water that is used to wash the feet is kept in a different vessel. Water used to consume is kept in a different vessel. These 2 should not be mixed. Similarly, when it is offered to the Lord also, there should be very careful differentiation. non-mixing. Even by mistake, it should not happen. That's what they say at the first level, in the initial level. But afterwards, when a person immerses himself in the experience of the Lord, he doesn't know from which vessel he is offering Arghya, from which vessel he is offering Padya, etc. So he is totally immersed in the Lord that he offers any vessel, from any vessel he actually offers any. From Arghya Padya, I might offer Padya, from Padya Patra, I might offer Achamiya, etc. But the immersing oneself is most important in the divine experience of the Lord is most important. That is said at the highest level. So that is how it should. So I hope there are no other questions. Achedramam jetyesha chatura chaturakshari kamavastham prapadyante jantavo hantamadrishah punyam bhoja vikasaya papadhvantakshayaya cha श्रीमान आविर्भूत भूमौ रामानुज दिवाकरः तृणीकृत विरिञ्चारितिरङ्कुश विभूतयः रामानुजपदाम्भोज समाश्रयण शालिनः।